What's going on, my money mavens, moolah misfits? It's me, Joe Knows Money here. Just going live on this Friday. We'll give everybody about 1 minute to realize that I'm going live. Join the session. As always, you can always jump on and check out the replay as well. I know it's a Friday evening, but I thought the information that we were going to be discussing today to be so important that we make sure we don't waste any time, because guess what? The stock market is going to be back open before you know it. And as a result of that, some of these helpful tips are going to come into play sooner rather than later, right? So again, thank you for joining. I'll just wait a few more seconds and then we will dive right into today's session, right? So just to give you an idea, today's session is a play on Paul Revere, right? The British are coming, the British are coming, right? So the recession is coming, the recession is coming. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but if you look at a lot of the economic data, it suggests that it's more likely to occur than not, right? So the big question becomes, if we think a recession is coming, what do we do about it? But before we get into that, I'm going to take a step back to say, what is a recession, right? So a recession, for those of you who know, bear with us. For those of you who don't know, I want to just share with you a little information about it, and then we'll talk more about the impact that a recession will have. A recession is a period of temporary economic decline during which trade and industrial activity are reduced, generally identified by a fall in GDP in 2 successive quarters. If inflation remains high and wages don't increase enough to match it, which is the case now, eventually the inflation itself could cause a recession. It acts like a big wage cut to the entire economy and consumption will drop. All right, so when we talk about a recession, why is it so important, or how does it impact us personally if the economy has 2 consecutive quarters of economic decline? Well, what starts to happen is that companies start to suffer, their profits go down, and as their profits go down, they will either go out of business because they can't afford to stay in the business, or what they will do is they start cutting jobs. So people will start losing their jobs. And remember, 70% of the US economy is driven by consumers. 70% is consumption based. So if people start losing their jobs, then what happens next is they don't have money to go out there and spend to keep the economy going. And it becomes a downward spiral where more and more companies are affected and more people are laid off and lose their job. So that's why recession is such bad news when we hear that it may be on the horizon. So why do I think that a recession is coming? Well, a number of reasons. One is because we're already halfway there. Remember, we said 2 consecutive quarters. Remember, a quarter is 3 months out of the year. So January, February, March is the first quarter, and then April, May, and June is the second quarter. So the first quarter already showed that the US economy has slowed. So all it takes is 1 more quarter for us to be officially in a recession. Right. And again, as I share with you, a recession could cause a lot of harm to people's households as folks will lose jobs and companies will go out of business. Now, keep in mind, not only may a person lose a job, but a lot of our retirements and other investments are invested in companies. And if these companies go out of business, it affects our financial stability in other ways than just our paycheck. So one of the reasons that the stock market is down today so significantly has to do with the data that just came out in regards to inflation. So check this out. So the information that rattled the markets today is the fact that inflation rose by 8.6% in May, the highest since 1981, when many economists was expecting inflation to decrease. But not only that, but real wages have also decreased by 3% over the last 12 months, which is going to undoubtedly affect consumer spending. So think about that. So the reason that the stock market was rattled may surprise some of you, right? Because a lot of economists believe that last month we had reached peak inflation. So they thought that inflation was going to start slowly decreasing from here, but actually it increased in the month of May, right? So now they're like, oh my gosh, the efforts that the Federal Reserve are taking are not strong enough to cause a decrease in inflation. So as a result of that, they're concerned that the Federal Reserve will have to raise interest rates for a longer period of time, which means that the stock market will become less valuable, right? Because what happens is as inflation increases, then companies will again start being harmed when it comes to people's ability to buy and purchase their service and goods, and their profit margins will shrink. Well, if they're less profitable, they become less valuable, so people are willing to pay less money for them. And again, the stock market just declines from there, right? So when we think about it, we say, okay, well, Joe, we know the potential downside of a recession. People can lose their jobs, companies can go bankrupt, we can see our retirement and our other investment assets decrease in value. It doesn't sound like fun. So the question becomes, well, Joe, what do I do about it? If you say it's more of a likelihood than it has ever been, then I want to make sure that not only am I prepared, but also I'm in position to maybe benefit from an impending recession as well. So what does that look like? All right. So the first thing a person can do is not panic. Now that's easier said than done, because when you turn on the television or when you see the title of this video and you're like, the recession is coming. Oh no, I know that's not a good thing. Well, the reason you shouldn't panic is for two reasons. One, the average recession lasts about 18 months, right? So you want to hunker down and make sure you're in position to get through the next 18 months. The second thing is you can only affect so much of what's going to impact or the economy and cause a recession. So by you watching the constant stream of news, right, you'll see CNBC, Bloomberg, they have 24 hours telling you, point, counterpoint, why we may have a recession, why we may not have a recession, what you need to do in your portfolio. It's all this conflicting information. You need to have enough information to stay informed, but not too much to feel that you're overwhelmed. So don't panic, because I would encourage you to prepare. That's a better use of your time and energy. So what you can also do is revisit your budget. Because again, if we're faced with the prospect that people may lose their jobs, the economy may slow, then you want to make sure that you're looking in areas of your budget right now that you can realize some kind of cost savings. I give you a prime example. When COVID first hit, one of the first things that I did is reach out to my car insurance to say, what other policies do you have now that I don't foresee myself traveling as much as I once did? And I was able to lower my car insurance bill by 30-40%, right? You'll look at other areas of your budget to see, can I save money on my cell phone bill? Can I save money, in my grocery bill? Everything, think about it this way. Whatever steps that you would normally take, if you found yourself to be without a job, you need to look at your budget that critically, because you don't want to wait for something to occur before you position yourself to have as many variable expenses in your budget with very few fixed expenses. Because keep in mind, if you have a low car note, a low mortgage, you have low fixed expenses, if something bad happens in the economy, you can cut back on entertainment, you can cut back on the extras, but it's harder to cut back on those fixed expenses, right? So make sure you revisit your budget to make sure that you have as much flexibility as possible over the next 18 months. The other thing that you can do is pay down debt, because you remember that I said the Federal Reserve will have to continue to increase interest rates in order to stymie inflation. Well, as they increase interest rates, that means certain things may increase, like the interest that you pay on debt via, like your credit card debt and your other debt that you may have in place. You may find that the interest rate that you're paying will increase So you have to pay more money just to pay back the money that you already borrowed. So start paying that down aggressively now, so that's not hanging over your head, A, as interest rates increase, but B, if you find yourself to be without a job, or if you're in a dual income household, maybe one of you may be in danger of losing a job. Because remember, different segments of the economy do really well when everything is going good. Like housing would be one of those, whether you're a mortgage broker, whether you're a real estate agent, whether you're a home builder. Then all of a sudden, once the economy goes down, it becomes more of a cyclical business. So take a critical look at your budget to see where you could save and how you can take that savings to pay down debt now. The next thing that you can do is boost your emergency savings. Now, I would encourage you to boost your emergency savings for two reasons. One is that in the event of an emergency, you have money readily available so that you don't have to go into debt in order to take care of this emergency, or you don't have to crack open like your nest egg, your retirement account, in order to pay for a new roof on your home or pay for a major repair on your car, your vehicle. So by having that emergency fund in place, it insulates your other investments, and it also keeps you away from any dangerous spending habits like charging your credit card and not being able to pay it off at the end of the month. But the other reason that I would encourage you to look at an emergency fund is more of a proactive look at things, to say, you know what, Joe, if I did lose my job as a result of a recession, I want to have enough money in my emergency fund to take care of me over those 12 months period of time. But I'm just not going to wait to get another job. Maybe I use this as an opportunity to take a career break, a sabbatical, or as I call it, test driving retirement. So then that way you can get a sense over that 12-month period of time where you want to be in the future versus just hopping right back on the treadmill and trying to get another job when no one is hiring. Look at all the companies that have already implemented a hiring freeze. So the worst time for you to look for a job is during a recession. So if you have enough money saved towards a sabbatical, you can be proactive. And guess what? If you take a trip to like Mexico, your money will stretch twice as long. So if you have 12 months of emergency expenses saved in an emergency fund, and you went on a sabbatical to Mexico, that money will last you 2 years versus 1 year, right? And that will get you through the average duration of a recession, which is 12 to 18 months. So improve your emergency fund, fortify it. The next thing I would say is to reevaluate your job situation, right? Oftentimes people, there's something flying around in my face here, but oftentimes people will say, well, Joe, I think I should be okay, right? Well, let me put it to you like this. I think oftentimes people confuse being optimistic with ignoring reality. If you are someone who was just recently hired at your job, the person who was more recently hired is also the one who is more likely to be fired if there's an economic downturn. Maybe you feel like, well, I don't want to speak this into existence, right? But if you're assessing your career or the field that you're in, you should know by now whether it's a cyclical kind of scenario for you. The examples that I gave earlier. So reevaluate your job situation to see if you're in a strong position. And if you're not, see how you can prepare, right? Get your resume ready, make sure it's in tip-top shape. Look for other opportunities that may give you some stability. So if you feel like, oh, I need to, find a company that I think is more stable than the one that I'm presently at, it's no better time than the present for you to take that kind of action. If you know that a certain designation or certification makes you more valuable in your field, then now is the time to invest in yourself. Because again, you know that when a recession happens, if you've been in your career for 15 years or more, you know that, or if you know history, that once a recession happens, People lose their jobs, and once companies start hiring again, it's uber competitive. So you want to make sure you're positioned in a larger pool of candidates to still rise to the top. And you can do so by making sure that you reevaluate your current situation to fill any gaps in your resume, make sure your resume is up to date so that you can get right back on the hunt if that is what you need to do. So let's talk about the investment part of things, right? Because we had talked about the fact that as the economy turns down, companies may go out of business, people may lose their jobs, how it will impact your retirement and your other investments. But the silver lining in it all is that if you are in a position where you have extra money, or if you have money that is invested in something other than the stock market presently, you can reposition that to put it in the stock market when the stock market has declined. So think of it this way. If you were able to buy one share of Amazon stock for $2,000 a month, right? If you were able to do that at the beginning of the year, now you can buy it for $1,000 a share. Now you can buy twice as much for the same amount of money. So when you think about rebalancing your portfolio, you can take money. Let's say if you have money in the bond portion of your portfolio, which is holding up okay, but your stock portion of your portfolio is down by 20, 30, or 40%, you can move some of that money, whether it's in cash or bonds or a stable value fund, and put it in the stock market to capitalize on the decline. Because one thing you should know, history does not predict the future. However, we know that historically the stock market has always gone back up. I mean, look at the most recent COVID recession that we have that lasted 3 months. It was March of 2020. The stock market went down by 30% and it went right back up and then some, right? I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm giving you ideas that you will want to look at in order to see if it works for your individual situation. So I've said a lot. Let me just take a quick pause, check the comments, see how you all are feeling out there. So let's see. I see Tamika, we said we waited to buy a home because of the pandemic. We are currently looking for lots to build. What are your thoughts? You know what, Tamika, let me tackle that as we talk more about the next session when it comes to investments, because that's a really good point, right? Oftentimes we are talking about what happens in the stock market during a recession, but there's also now talk that the housing market may be slowing. And as a recession hits, again, less households have the money that's necessary to buy homes, and then it becomes less competitive. All right. So let's talk about that a little bit more as we move forward. Thank you for that comment. All right, so this goes hand in hand with what I was talking about before. So if you already have money, you can rebalance it because you already have cash maybe in your retirement account, in your 401k, in your IRA, in your brokerage account maybe. And now you're repositioning that money. But the other thing that you can do is max out your retirement contributions. Well, why would you want to do that? Well, first off, this is assuming that you pay down your debt. This is assuming that you have a healthy emergency fund. And if you did those things, now you're protected. So we know that you're anchored in place. And that's important because you worked so hard to get to this point in your career and in your financial life that your main goal should be anchoring in place like a ship, like a boat, where you may sway a little bit in the rough seas of a recession, but you don't lose ground. So that's what the emergency fund allows you to do. But once you solidify your financial foundation, then the next thing is to capitalize off of a recession and take advantage of the silver lining. So how you can do that is maxing out your retirement account. So if you're maxing out like a 401k, which is you can put in over $20,000 a year now, which is far different, by the way, than what most people think maxing out your 401k means. Most people that I've talked to throughout my career, when I ask them, are you maxing out your 401k? Yeah, Joe, I sure am. And what they were referring to is they would say, Joe, I'm putting in 5% and that's how much my employer will match. So therefore I'm maxing it out. No, like I said, you can put in over $20,000 a year now into your 401k plan, and that doesn't include any employer contribution that may follow. Just as a refresher, what are the benefits of that? Well, one, your money grows tax deferred. Two, when you put money in, that reduces your taxable income. So if you make $100,000 a year and you put $20,000 into your 401k, Uncle Sam doesn't look at it as if you made $100,000. Uncle Sam looks at it as if you made something less, like $80,000. So this is a great way for you to take care of yourself from a tax standpoint. It also allows you to put money into your 401k and then distribute it into your investment portfolio, which again, if the stock market is down by 10, 20, 30, 40%, you're loving it, right? Because you're gobbling up more and more stocks at a discount. So it's just like going into a department store. If you see all of your name brand clothing on sale, you're going to rejoice. You're not going to walk out the store and say, oh man, it's down by 40%. You know, they marked this down by 40%. I don't want it. No, you're going to dive in and grab as much as you can, because you know that sales don't last and that the price of that clothing is going to increase. The same thing happens with stocks. So max out your retirement contributions. And I'm going to do a whole series about 401ks, because a lot of people don't understand how 401k is like a Swiss Army knife. It gives you so many different ways to improve your wealth. I mean, you can start a business out of your 401k plan without being hammered in taxes. There's all kind of protections that it affords you. I'm telling you, I'm not going to give it all away, but I'm going to do a whole series on 401ks so that you all can have an idea of, beyond what I just mentioned, the importance of making sure that you max out your retirement account. So let me share with you, right, what I'm doing in order to take advantage of the impending recession. There's a strategy that most people aren't familiar with that sets you up extremely nicely, right? It sets you up, it's a strategy that sets you up for a win-win situation in a recession, where you benefit if the stock market goes up and you benefit if the stock market goes down. And for me, the strategy that I'm employing is being prepared to convert my funds to a Roth IRA. So if you have money in a 401k plan, if you have money in a traditional IRA, here, I can tell you what I'm doing. For example, I have money in a traditional IRA. And what I'm doing, I've already have a list of stocks as well as mutual funds that I've had my eye on for a while. And I say, you know what, if this stock goes down by 30 or 40%, I'm going to buy some. Let's say it's Amazon. Or I've looked at, or in addition to that, I've looked at various mutual funds and index funds, which I'll do a video about that, because I owe that to some people who have asked me, well, Joe, what are some of my options for investing as the stock market goes down? So what I'm doing presently is I'm acting, even as the market goes down, I'm buying those stocks that I like. Why? Do I know if that stock will decrease any further if it's already down by 40%? I don't know. It could go down by an additional 20%, or it could go straight up here from now. But here's how I win no matter what. So if I buy Amazon stock in my traditional IRA, let's say I buy $100,000 of Amazon stock, just for round number's sake. So I bought it at a 40% discount. If it goes up from here, then I've already bought in. I'm not having any regret knowing that I should have acted upon my plan and bought it when it was down by 40%, and my money will grow tax deferred in the traditional IRA. However, if it goes down by another 40%, then what I can do, or what I will do, is I will take that 100,000 that is now worth 60,000, because remember I said it went down by another 40%, and I will convert that into a Roth IRA. Now, what that will do is allow for that $60,000 to grow to infinity and I will never have to pay taxes on that again. So as that $60,000, as the Amazon stock recovers in this example and it gets back up to 100,000 and beyond, I will pay no taxes on that money. The only time I pay taxes is on that $60,000 that I converted from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. And I'm happy to do so because remember, just months earlier, that Amazon stock was worth $100,000. Now it's worth $60,000. And I believe it's going to come back in the future. That's a perfect time for me to save on taxes. I'd rather pay taxes on $60,000 instead of $100,000. So I benefited, A, if the stock market goes up from here, because my money just grows tax deferred, or B, if the stock market continues to go down and I didn't, timing is the wrong word because I don't time, but if I didn't implement my strategy at the perfect time and that stock continues to go down, no worries, because now I'm going to benefit from a tax perspective. So that's a little known strategy that a lot of people don't look at as a win-win scenario that I highly encourage you to look at to see if it works for your individual situation. All right, so we covered a lot today. We're about 26 minutes in. Let me check the comment section again. And keep in mind, I'm still learning how to work this streaming service. So I can't necessarily see all of you who are tuning in the live broadcast, but I can see your comments. So if you have comments, even if you want to say hello, or if you have particular questions, now would be the time to do so, right? So back to Tamika Lee's question, right? We waited to buy a home because of the pandemic. We are currently looking for lots to build. What are your thoughts? It all depends on your current situation, Tamika. If you are, in a home already and you're just looking to upgrade or get a bigger home or however you want to word it or phrase it, then I would, suggest you consider waiting it out because the economy, and there's no guarantee, but all the signs are pointing to a recession, which means there's more likelihood that prices will go down from here. However, if you're renting, and everything I've been reading is that rents are just increasing like crazy, and you plan on holding the home for 15, 20 or more years, then I would be okay purchasing a home knowing that it may go down in value in the short term, but long term, it would still pay dividends for me to buy even in a hot market. All right. So I hope that is helpful. What other questions do we have, right? Again, we talked about the impending recession, what it might mean for the economy, what it may mean for you, as well as the steps that you can take in order to make sure not only that you survive, but that you can thrive in a recession. All right, so as always, if you found this information to be helpful, please do two things for me. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that the algorithms can spread this information far and wide. That's why I do it. I want to reach as many people as possible to give them good information that they can research and figure out if it makes sense for them to implement on their own. But the second thing I would ask you to do is leave whatever questions that you have in the comment section so that I can go back, answer as many as I can to make sure that everyone feels heard and included in this process. All right. So I seen a light come my way. Thank you so much for that. And I hope everyone enjoys their Friday evening. And until next time, be good to yourselves.